Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 3, Episode 2.
Welcome back, friends. Today we have our youngest guest so far. In just a couple short years, this young man has gone from a regular high school kid to traveling all over the country, creating amazing visuals for an array of clients in various industries. Welcome, Darton.
I like that. I like that little intro right there. I can get with that. Okay. All right.
So
Happy to be here.
Who are you? What's your full name? You go by Darton, right?
I go by Darton. My full name is Darton Weavor. It's actually my given name, which surprises most people meet me. They don't believe that that's my actual name. Dalton would be the spelling, but with an R instead of an L is how I spell my name. That's what my parents came up with. They found it in the back of some book
Versus
before
mine,
I was
which
born.
is,
Yeah.
Mine's the easiest, right?
Yeah, yours like the first one that comes up on a C in the book.
Yeah.
That or Calvin, one of the two.
Okay, so you're young. A lot of people already know who you are in Eau Claire, but in general, for people to start following what you do, what's the best form of contact for them? How do they follow you? Give us the plug on everything.
That's difficult because I'm actually going through kind of just rebranding my stuff right now. As a lot of big things are coming up, but you can hit up my Instagram at DARTXN on Instagram. That's my Twitter as well too. You can follow my Snapchat. That's kind of my more personal side of my life at Darton Weavor. And then you can check out my website at dartonmedia.com.
Okay, so I guess give us the lowdown. Like I said, you're from Eau Claire. How old are you now?
I'm 19.
Yeah, so
19
you're
years old.
young, and you started coming around the shop a long time ago. So I just remember you being young, coming into my store, and then disappearing and blowing up on social media things. I was seeing your numbers grow, and I'm like, how is he way over here? So who are you? What exactly do you do? I guess, why did I ask you to be a guest?
Yeah, so to start again, I'm Darton. That's what I go by. If you're gonna look up my thing, don't look up Darton Weavor because you're just already wasting too many letters. Darton is like the whole thing that I live, run, do. Darton is me, a person. I'm an artist. I do videography mostly, as well as photography. I do sports design, sports management. I pretty much run everything digital content creation wise on the side of professional and collegiate sports. That is my biggest thing. That's what I've fallen in love with, and I fall in love with content creation and making art out of documentary.
Right. So you first blew up, right, with one specific video, which I'm sure you get asked about all the time. Yeah. But considering you were pretty young at the time, describe what that was and how that kind of kickstarted things.
Yeah, I was 16 years old at the time. I had a teacher who would encourage me to pick up a camera. I was struggling with a lot of mental health stuff at that time, actually, to be completely transparent and honest. And a teacher would encourage me, shout out Jan Bovey at North High School, would encourage me pick up a camera. And Janelle Patton had said, hey, pick up a camera and just try and shoot some sports and stuff. You've always been a fan of sports. And so I started shooting highlights of the different sports that took place at North High School in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, if you're not familiar. And shot this video I called the Crosstown 1 video, which is where North and Memorial, which are the two big public high schools in Eau Claire, play each other in basketball. And I shot a video of that whole thing, and it went crazy on Instagram. It was this hit in Eau Claire and even the areas around, and that kind of kickstarted my whole career from that point forward.
Okay, so I think branding's super important. I was already an adult when I opened my store, so I already kind of understood that before you just put something out there, you have to have a very strong idea of what that thing is. So how did you come up with the branding of Darton, the X that you have in the name? Because you have a whole thing, and it's been cohesive from the beginning. I know you're talking about rebranding, but how did you come up with that stuff?
Yeah, the X in my name, all my name and all my branding stuff, DARTXN, has been accidental at best. I actually tried to get the Instagram handle just at Darton, and Instagram says that's an invalid word that you can't use. I don't know why. If somebody listens to this and you know somebody at Instagram, I'll pay to have the answer to why this isn't a thing. But that was the closest thing to my name that I could do, and so that kind of just became the branding from there. And it was simple and short. And I'm a huge minimalist and a perfectionist, and the culmination of those two things has always been the reason why, the shorter, the more concise, the better for me. And so that's kind of how that came forward. As far as logo and visual branding and things like that, if you type in Dart, which has been my nickname as a kid on your iPhone, the dart board, like the dart thrown at the dartboard emoji is what comes up. So that was my logo growing up as an early content creator. Was like all my videos were tagged with this dripping dartboard with a dart in it, which is the same emoji that comes up on your phone. So I've just kind of been authentic to my own narrative. Is kind of how I've came up with the things. I guess it's never been anything too groundbreaking.
So because you did that video when you were 16, right? And what was the time frame that you had came into my shop? Because this was like not long before all of a sudden you traveled all over the place. When was it that all of a sudden this became like a pretty serious thing beyond like something to help with mental health and a creative outlet?
Well, first time I came into your shop, I was probably, how long has the shop been open? We're at like
a little over 6 years now.
I was going to say
already.
7
so
years now.
13.
Yeah, so I remember coming the week it opened. I was so excited. That was like my biggest outlet as a kid, was like biking and longboarding. I had two parents who both work full time, so I was never the kid who like could just ask his parents to like bring him somewhere. It was like if I told my parents I was going somewhere, they'd be like, okay, have fun. And it was like you figure out how to get it done, right? And I lived too far out of town to ever hit the bus or anything like that. So it was like biking and longboarding and skating for me. It was like always a thing as a kid. Not even like I never wanted to be like a professional skateboarder or anything crazy like that. Wasn't super into the tricks or whatever, but for me it was always just kind of transportation. So that drug me into your shop 6, almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
From there. And obviously then with as we were talking about mental health and the camera stuff from there, it was very much like a coping mechanism for probably the first year and a half. We're pushing year 3 now. So like the majority of it, honestly. And for anybody who's like starting something new right now that you think is like a creative hobby, like expect the first like 75% until you feel like you've made it, even though you haven't. Like, you're gonna feel like you have and you feel comfortable with it. Expect like the first 95% of that to be a struggle first. So out of the 3 that I've been doing this, which is still insane to me that this has only been 3 years, because it feels like it's been 20. That the first 3 or the first 1.5 were kind of a coping thing. And then after that, it became more of a professional gig. I started kind of connecting with small businesses around Eau Claire at first, where I started to kind of do marketing and media and little side things for wherever I could hustle, really, honestly. And then from there, I really got back into the sports side of things by my junior year / senior year of high school. And from there was like, I just want to do sports media. Like, that's just the coolest stuff to me.
So what was the first thing that you did beyond that video? Because you started traveling a lot, right? Was the first big trip and stuff something that was commissioned to do, or like?
Yeah. So after I blew up from the crosstown video, I had originally applied for this job with Adidas Deal Minnesota, which is a travel basketball team, #1 grassroots program in the country. Grassroots, if you don't know, is like the youth basketball leagues across the country that take place during the summer. And I got declined for the job with them the first time. And then the second time they had the opening for that position was after the crosstown video, and I had applied for it. And they were like, hey, I mean, you don't have a lot of resume in sports, but you just made this one video that like shows that you have a shot. Like, you can probably pick this up and do something big with it. And then from there, I got a call from their managing director, Jeremy Miller. Shout out, Jeremy. He said, hey, kid, I'll give you a chance. At 16 years old, you want to travel the country with us and shoot some video. And yeah, so he gave me a job, like a paid job, to just travel the country with them and just tell their amazing narratives and their amazing stories as a company, and develop branding for them too. So
how did the schooling go, and how did like your friendships and stuff change? Because like most people, right, they're just like getting ready for prom and all that shit. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like having to take things real seriously, because I'm sure the expectations that are put on you aren't that of a 16-year-old, right? They're
surely not. No.
Exactly,
and,
right?
Yeah, and that was the best thing for me, but like looking back on it was tough. I mean, it gave me a different side of mental health issues, I think. It was like I missed a lot of stuff, but in an essence, it was so exciting. It was like I've always been somebody who people would describe as like more mature than other people my age. And so really being able to be on my own and figure out for myself if I'm actually cut for that. Like, people would tell me that, but like I didn't believe it until I could go out myself and be like, okay, am I though? Right? And so when I actually stepped out myself, I was addicted to it. I was like, I don't want to be sitting in high school worrying about any of that stuff anymore. And so I wasn't. Like, I would go to class like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, dip to Minneapolis on a Thursday, and then we'll get on a flight Friday morning and be gone somewhere in the country for the whole weekend, and maybe make it back Sunday, maybe make it back Monday morning, Tuesday, whatever I've kind of felt like. I've always been okay in school, grade-wise, that it didn't really matter. I was set to graduate anyways, regardless of kind of just if I went an okay semester from there. That was all the second semester of my senior year, so it wasn't too bad.
I think you learn a lot during that time frame, right? I always tell people, like, I don't think you turn an adult when you're 18. Like, I don't think really that's when that transition happens. I think when that transition happens is when you're put out on a position on your own where you're no longer surrounded directly by your immediate family and friends that have kind of influenced your decisions and took care of you in all those ways. When all of a sudden you're out on your own, whether it's you get your first apartment or whatever that may be, there's a lot of personal growth through that time, right? So what were some of the things that you learned about yourself when you started traveling that, like, maybe you weren't really aware of until you were put in that type of a position?
Yeah, so many things. I guess the first of which was like, well, let me also acknowledge too is like, I thought that I grew up like in that like 1 year span, and then like bought my first place like a few months ago, and like realized that I still don't get it all. You know what I mean? But God, traveling like that, the first thing it taught me is like just how different people are like all over the country. Like that, like in the community that I am in is such a community of really just blinders, honestly. Like the Eau Claire community is so blind, so much of what's out there, and that's, to any Eau Claire kid, I would encourage you have to leave to see it. Like Eau Claire Eau Claire acts very diverse, but like until you step out and see different life perspectives, I would have never begun to understand.
You know, one thing a lot of people don't understand is most Americans never leave the country in their life. Granted, that's changing quickly, right? But the statistic still is that most Americans don't. And it's not just throughout the country, it's throughout the world. Whenever you surround yourself by like-minded people that are all part of the same kind of industry, or community for that matter, right? You all grow up and you spend all this time around the same things. So you don't really get to experience what other people are doing. You don't really see what else is going on. And once you travel, you get to open your mind to a lot of those things.
Yeah, and traveling at 16 was like such a good time for me to just like jump, because it's that time when like you're trying to figure out like who you are and like who you don't want to be. Like you're trying to figure out who you don't want to be at that point, right? Like you're 16, like you finally can hate some stuff. Like you've lived 16 years is long enough where you can start to say that you hate certain things about life and like the world. And so so traveling at 16 taught me like what I didn't want to be. And I started to kind of filter that out. I started to decide, hey, like I'm not here to just be like normal and just be okay with kind of just achieving at an average level. I really became really addicted to driving my stuff past and beyond what other of my friends were looking to do at that same age and same different caliber.
Okay, so this next one is it's something that I think like everybody finds out at different time frames, right? And it's always hard to like admit. But to become successful and to get where you want to be, you're gonna end up, excuse my language, but fucking up several times, right? You're gonna make several mistakes on things that you're like, no, this is what I believe I want to do for this project or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you know, this is your first time doing it, you realize, holy shit, this doesn't work.
Oh, no,
right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me about a mistake that you made and how you decided to kind of maneuver that and not let that just kind of beat you down?
No, yeah, and I think one of the things to talk about too is like in the world that I work in, and for those who like are who are watching this because they also aspire to the same thing as me, like be ready to fail and also understand that like the success of what we do in media and digital is so loved because it's flashy, because it's seen. And when you fail or like mess up or do something that's out of your character in the digital world, it also gets seen at the same caliber, which was the hardest thing for me to understand when I was younger. It was like, oh, if I went left on some project where I should have gone right, and people really had a harsh reaction to something, like it's already, like the project's already out, like, and I still have that audience. You really love the audience until it fights you, and learning to work through that was hard for me. So I guess one example would be when I was working with D1, a superior and I clashed on visions with 2 whole projects straight. And I was really heart set on going one way with it, and he really just wasn't. So much to the point where we argued to the point where we almost parted ways halfway through the whole tour. And I was heartbroken about it and didn't really understand like what was going on and why. And I had to just sit back, kind of check myself and say to myself, hey, am I here to serve and like put my head down and work, or am I too worried about what the vision is on my personal end? And that was hugely eye-opening to me, learning to say, hey, like, understand like that they're here because they've been doing that for X amount of time. You were just brought in, not because you get that amount of say early on, but because they want your vision as collaborative. So learning to collaborate in that much of a spotlight was really hard for me at 16. But I'll tell you right now, learning those lessons are things that like I would never ask to not have happened because they've taught me so much now.
I think it makes you an incredibly easier person to work with moving forward when you deal with those types of situations. One thing I've said a lot of times, just like in personal life, right? I'm a father, I have 2 children, is people bring up that like public school, private school, homeschool thing. And I always say, man, as much as homeschool sounds great, I really think that social skills are the biggest thing, the most important thing that you learn through life. It affects almost everything. And it's hard to do that in a homeschool situation. And same way with like a business, right? The best way for you to grow and become more successful and capable is to be put in uncomfortable positions with people
Hugely.
where you have to learn how to work with them and, you know, both be happy with what ends up happening with it.
Absolutely.
My shop is like straightforward, right? That's like the nice part is people ask, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I own the skateboard shop. And they're like, oh, which one? And I'm like, dog, the only one. Like, Google it, skateboard shop. I'm the only one.
That's the only one. Like, you don't go anywhere else if you got to get something. Right? This whole part of Wisconsin, you don't go anywhere else. So
yeah, so it's straightforward. Like, that's what I do. And yeah, my store is unique looking when you come in, but really, like, it's what you expect a skateboard shop to be. It's a community
100%.
hub, and that's where you buy all your stuff.
Culture spot.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Now, my show is like a little bit more diverse. I have to explain to people, like, I've been seen as the person that is skateboarding, right, in this town. And yes, I still skateboard and all that. But this show clearly isn't related to skateboarding. There are skateboarding elements simply because that's how I've connected to people over the years.
Yep.
But the show is just a inspirational, motivational piece to try to like get you to think about your life and go, what am I passionate about? How can I do those things more? Here are some examples with my different guests of those people were in those situations and are now doing things that they're passionate about, and it's so incredibly fulfilling for them. So that's like what the 2 projects I have. So you're a videographer, you do photography, you do all kinds of stuff, right? The reason that you're successful, or one of them anyways, is because your stuff is instantly recognizable by anybody that sees it, right? It definitely looks different, which is what catches the attention.
The style.
So can you describe what you do with your visuals?
And it is intentional.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Yes, that's one of people's biggest questions. Is they're like, do you like what's your style, and is it like something that you just kind of came across? Is it intentional? No, it's hugely intentional. The biggest thing I wanted to do was, like, if you would ask what my mission statement is I'm an insane music fan. Like, I don't know anything in this world as well as I know music. Like, all genres, but hip hop and rap especially has been like my thing. I follow it every single day, watch charts every single day. It's been my thing since I was younger. It's like people watching the stock market, but I watch like the billboards every single day. And came on the scene as a music video director. I like loved his stuff, but like didn't think I had the passion for like music videos. But like loved his style of like how he'll do stuff that's characterized by like drawings on the screen, or like transitions that otherwise you wouldn't have expected to be associated with what was going on. Very juxtaposed kind of things. And that's what I wanted to bring to sports. I've always called myself the Cole Bennett of the sports world. I wanted to make sports seem cinematic, tell a story and tell a narrative, but have a different edge to it. You've always seen the fact that I've used lines and different geometric things in my art and things like that, and even drawings and colors and lots of stuff around those kind of things. So it's always been something that, to me, style has been my biggest thing that's made me stand out, because anybody can sit with a camera and shoot highlights of sports and have it be sufficient, depending on the sport that you're shooting. Obviously, like, athletes are the ones who are making the art. I am just a documentarian. So how can I be different in that other world?
So what is a video, if you're going to like suggest somebody like, hey, it's going to be worth your 2 minutes time or whatever, what video are you going to suggest people go check out right now?
Oh, I don't even know. To be honest with you, I don't even know. Go watch any of them, because like every video is different. I shoot so differently all the time, but like always kind of have these same, like they all kind of just tell a story of how I've kind of came up along the way anyways. So Depends what you want to see. If somebody wants to see kind of how I started this, scroll back. If you want to see kind of like the polished art now, come up.
I think you'll have an enjoyable time looking through them just because, like, really, you've done a lot of different stuff. Yeah, you've done a lot of, like, sports. Like, that's really where you've gotten to now, especially, like, basketball and stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, you've done a lot of stuff. I mean, shit, you did stuff with, like, models and stuff, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did that particular thing come up? I remember seeing that video pop up, and I'm like, this dude can't, man, you must have been 17, 18. You were young, and I'm like, how in the world did he get linked up with all these, like, lingerie models to want to do videos? Like, how did that happen?
That's always a great conversation starter is when I'm 17 years old and people meet me and they see that my most recent video on my thing is like promoting for lingerie videos. But so my biggest thing was like I wanted people got too comfortable telling me what I was and what I wasn't. And I really felt the need to prove what I was and what I wasn't. And so at first, it was very much like sports oriented at first and hugely basketball. And everybody was like, okay, so like he's just the basketball guy. And like he was like, oh, they're like he's like the best at the basketball thing, right? And I wanted to just be hot for everything. And so I had to prove that I could step into that other realm and still be competitive with everybody else in it at the same time. So I stepped into that for a bit just to show, hey, like I can do that if that's what you want me to do. If that's what the situation requires, I can step into that whole realm too. For me, it was kind of showing that, hey, like I have the skills on this end, that, and then wherever else I need to be versatile.
Again, that's the fun part with this show for me is I've been pigeonholed as like this skateboarding dude. And yeah, like I'm a skateboard nerd. Like I talk about it forever with people, all my favorite video parts. Like when I'm at the bar, I hear a song come on and I'm like, oh my God, that was Louis Barletta's part in this video. Like I'm that dude, right?
Yes.
But like what drives me to do what I do, it's not really because of the skateboard in particular, you know, which is how I can connect with other people. And
shout out Caliber trucks, by the way. Should put that out there. Shout out Caliber longboard trucks. I've had to pair them I've been rocking those for like 5-6 years.
Yeah, they last forever for sure.
Love them things.
But yeah, no, I mean, so I feel like it was with me is when you become an entrepreneur, specifically like when you own an actual storefront, you end up meeting all the other store owners in the area just through various events and stuff. And all of a sudden it clicks with you like, whoa, I'm like part of this community. And I have so much in common with these people. And it's really interesting to hear them talk because the way they talk about their careers and what they're doing is the same way that I talk about it. They're so excited about these various projects. And it made me realize like, whoa, my world doesn't have to be just skateboarding involved. Like I want to expand and do some other things. And the skills that I've gained through the time of, you know, running contests and stuff and being on a microphone with people or like in general, I've been interviewed for quite a few things. It just made me realize like, wait a second, I have the skills to do something totally different. And it doesn't have to just be skateboarding. And it's exciting now to kind of branch out into different things. Right. You said 3 years, really. So that means in like a year and a half, all of a sudden this has become like a really professional thing for you.
Yeah.
Why do you think your work's been so well received in such a short period of time?
I think it was just like, I spent a year and a half like learning how to serve people, honestly. Like I spent the first year and a half like creating stuff that like I thought was dope on like jobs and things like that, right? And then the last year and a half has been like being the best at like being authentic and just serving people, saying, hey, what do we need to do? And like, how can what skills do I have that I can bring that are going to make this narrative or this documentary or this kind of thing that we're working on be different and really show them something on a client to client basis or on a project to project basis that is really different and goes above and beyond what they had expected from the beginning. A lot of people, when they come to me, they're looking just kind of, they have a basic set of things that they want to accomplish that goes under the art. Like they just want to have this shot captured here, this shot captured here. And I have the ability to say, okay, like how much more can we do onto those things? And I think the biggest thing that's changed it so fast has been the fact that like I've been dedicated to it, been passionate about it. And through that has been an endless work ethic to just put my head down and say, hey, what else do you need? And how much further can I take everything that I do? Because I love to take it further.
Well, and I think it comes back to something you said earlier that you didn't just include, but it's obvious you've been extremely intentional about all of the hard work and the different collaborations that you've done.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It'd be really easy to just take contracts and just do all the same stuff, right? Like you could have just been doing basketball this whole time. But when you look for the right opportunities and take those, that's what really makes a business successful, in my opinion. Whether it's an artist or whatever kind of business it is, you're going to have opportunities constantly come your way if you're any good at what you do. The key is to recognize when the right opportunities come up and then go full force at those things and make sure you're getting everything you can out of that situation.
Hugely. And I think one of the biggest things I would add to that would be talking to anybody else who's listening to this who is looking to do what I do or start their own business or things like that is at first, take it all. Take all that'll come at you, because if you don't have the confidence yet in like your ability to do everything, like all the things that your business might do, right? So if you have a flower shop and you have a wedding job or a funeral job, whatever else, right? Take all of those different jobs at least one time. Learn it all one time. So you have confidence in all of it. And then from there, you're able to pick and choose. But never be ignorant or push somebody away because it's not in what you want it to unless you've walked down that road before. And that was the biggest thing for my first year and a half, was just walking every road. And then the last year and a half has been every different niche market been asking me to do work. And now I can really sit back and say, okay, I really want to put value in this market or put value in that market or serve this group of people or this demographic from there. And so once I had time and the experience to say that, that's what's been the biggest blessing and the most meaningful part of my work so far, is really getting to just be more deep and more intentional about who I collaborate with and who I serve. And that's been probably the most exciting part of my work recently, is really having options. Being like, hey, who do I want to surround my image with? Who do I want? Who complements it the best? Who can I really uplift?
That's why I think they always say, like, you know, once you make it 3 years or 5 years or whatever you're in, you know, it's not necessarily like financially. It's just if you've done it right up until that point, now you have a respect built among your peers. You have something to show for it. Now, if you contact somebody and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something with this, they start taking you seriously, like right off the bat. You don't have to try to play that game of like why they should take you seriously anymore. You have your own business entity. They can look at your numbers on social media. They can look at the videos that you've put out and the numbers that they've seen and whatever, and know, okay, this is what I bring to the table. I don't really have to prove it necessarily. I will work my hardest for you, but I'm already showing you like it already exists. Like what I have is already like valuable. So your career path in particular is evolving extremely quickly, right? Like insanely quickly because of how much phones do nowadays versus before. Or even like when I was in high school, you could rent the little JVC dad cams. And there was so little you could do, you know what I mean? And things are constantly evolving.
Nowadays, we call that art when somebody pulls one of those out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, what do you mean? It's
skate video go-to if you want some kind of grungy, edgy skate video. Now you've been pulling that same thing out.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think because the industry for yours is evolving so quickly, do you think that's helped you because you're young and you're like more adaptive than some people? Or do you think it's been something that's been a bit of a challenge for you?
That's the weirdest thing, is I was so worried about that at first when I started this. And nowadays, if you ask me, I'm not like, I'm so in love with this. I'll just move with the punches, right? Like I'm so just in love with doing this stuff now that the new changes to me are like the most exciting part of it. Mike about how in 2 days I have inside information that Instagram's gonna have another update coming out soon with some new features. And like, I'm just obsessed with this stuff. Like I'm so in love with it that I don't worry about the changes anymore. When it comes to my actual art, obviously then I worry more and have to be more intentional about focusing on making sure that I'm always constantly leveling myself up against those who are also in the same game. Shout out Cam Beverly specifically. I've been running at that kid's neck for a year and a half now that we've been kind of going back and forth. And I just can't keep up with his numbers. Every time I think I got something hot, that kid comes out with something even crazier. In Minneapolis too, that kid's been pushing basketball content out. And it's like, for me, it's never been the actual changes of the industry and the technology, because I'm ready to just fall with that as it comes. It's always been the art.
You know, I was talking to a different guest on the show. His name was Andrew Cannon. So shout out to that dude. He's the brand manager for Santa Cruz, the company. And he also,
I'd love to get in touch with him. Santa Cruz has a dope brand.
Dude, I have the hookup. He's sick. I went out and like did an interview with him in person in the warehouse.
Amazing.
He came in on his day off, and he was doing commentary for X Games and Street League. He was talking about maybe doing some stuff with the Olympics. His episode's good, so yeah, go listen to it. But I asked him about that.
Listen to the episode right now.
Yeah. I asked him about like that challenge, right? Of saying like, look, the industry's changing. Like, what are some challenges? And he brought up a really good point, and I completely agree with it. Is like, look, everyone is facing these challenges at the same time.
Yes.
The same time. So it's not putting you at any kind of disadvantage at all. If anything, it just provides you with new opportunities for you to tackle because other people have already fine-tuned their thing.
Well, and I think it's new. By new opportunities, I would even go as far as say like new dimensions and routes that you can tap into as your new other thing, right? That you can be the guy who tackles that new aspect better than what everybody else was.
Absolutely, because you're on that from the very beginning. I mean, think about when you start on something, right? Okay, say that comes out. Right away, what do? You probably look up tutorials. You probably go on forums to try to read about it. You want to learn what other people have already learned, which means what? You're now the junior of all these people.
Yep.
Right? You don't know as much as all these people. Well, when new changes come up, we're all at the start of it. So if you're on top of it at the start, you have every advantage to anybody else that hops on it the day after that, the day after that. So it actually puts you in a really cool position when new things, pop up, if you look at it in the right way anyways.
Mm.
Been a couple of the biggest challenges that you've had to face so far in the last, year and a half or whatever.
Value my work has been one. I'm just going to touch on that briefly, just kind of understanding like where I want to, like what my stuff is worth in comparison to who else is doing it, and really ensuring that like I provide the value that lives up to that amount of money, right? That was my biggest first thing that I'll say.
Faces that, especially because when you start, there's so many people who are newbies that want to do it for free. Right? And then most people don't understand what good work is worth. So they just want to get something for free. And a lot of times people will reach out and be like, yo, if you do this for me, then I'll give you exposure rather than money.
Yeah.
And then that conversation has to happen, right? Because people hit me up all the time too. And they're like, hey man, would you mind sharing this on your stuff? And I'm like, well, it took a lot of time for me to grow my following to be what it is. And it's because it's curated in a way. I'm not just blatantly promoting every random thing.
And one of the other biggest challenges I'll say as my second one would be like knowing when I could invent and when I had to serve was super challenging. And I'll give, and to anybody listening, this is the cheat code now, is like no matter how creative your idea is, nobody's going to like love it at first. Like I wanted to be the Cole Bennett, all that flashy stuff of, like I was talking about earlier, the cinematics, whatever else, of the sports world. If I would have just started by doing that, people would have been like, this is distracting from the sports highlights. It wouldn't have been cool yet. So I had to be surrounded by good athletes at first who I could just document what they were doing and then slowly add in those little things that became my style. And now if I would just post sports highlights, it would underperform on social. Whereas before, having those same athletes around me before, just shooting what they were doing used to get me more views than even just doing more creative stuff on the side. So know as your style develops, knowing when to serve and just when to just provide versus when to innovate and invent was a really hard balance for me to learn to find. And I still struggle to this day with it as I approach new markets and new situations, as obviously now getting in towards the football side of things more. Learning that audience and how much of that they like has been a challenge too.
Well, I think egos come in, right? A lot of times, you're talking about.
I have an ego problem.
Well, okay, so I get talked to about this from people periodically, and I'm like, well, so people are attracted to confident people, right? Like everyone knows that. So you have to have a little bit of an ego, or at least you have to kind of portray a little bit of an ego. Otherwise, you're going to be walked over, and people are going to just want their vision. When realistically, you have to find a middle ground with these people.
Usually.
Because otherwise, you're going to be creating the same content that anybody could, right? Because like you said, there's 1,000,001 people that can hold a camera steady. Like if that's all you're looking for, fine. But you have to be able to like come in and say, look, no, you're going to pay me this amount of money to do this because this is what I do. How can we work together to make this as mutually beneficial as possible and not sell yourself short? But then you're walking that fine balance, right? Of like not pissing them off and like understanding that you're working for them.
Well, and that's been the best part about the time base now is it went from coming to people on an agreement, being like, hey, where do we want to find that middle ground, to finally establishing my own style and people coming to me for that. So now they come to me and say, hey, I want you to do what you do to this or in this setting or on this environment or on this project. And that's been the most rewarding and the most meaningful thing ever yet.
Well, and you have to work hard to get to that point. That's what people
It was
need
a lot
to
of
understand,
it was a lot. It was a 100% compromise before that point
Yeah, you have to be able to like put in all that time and energy to build it up.
on working on something you might not have loved.
Yeah, and it could take a lot longer. It probably will take a lot longer than what it took you, realistically, for most people. Things that most people don't know about you that we haven't touched on.
Ooh, I have some good ones. I was born in Milwaukee, actually. If you know me, you know I have my hand tattoos of MKE on the side of my hand. The other side of my hand is EAU for Eau Claire. I was born to a 17-year-old single mother in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who put me in foster care. And I have faint memories of her coming to my adopted parents' house on and off until I was 6-ish, 5-ish, somewhere in there, I believe. Haven't seen, heard from her, or anything else like that since I was like young, which has been crazy. And that played into a lot of my mental health stuff when I was younger, like young. I had a lot of identity issues, kind of understanding. I grew up with white parents now who adopted me, so it's been something that I struggle with. But I mean, honest to God, telling you right now, like my parents have been like the most gracious, and my mom is to this day like constantly having open dialogue about race and about conversation. And it's been a blessing to have parents who are so open about that whole kind of a thing.
Well, and they must have been crazy supportive to allow you to just hop on a plane at 16, right?
Yeah,
and say,
as a 16-year-old African-American male where I just jump on a plane and just disappear with people she's never met. Kind of Vegas from Eau Claire, from Minneapolis, driving out of Eau Claire. Like, I get up like midnight, 1 a.m, and drive to the airport after school and get on a flight alone to wherever. Like, that took so much trust out of her, and God bless my mother absolutely for letting me do that, because I don't know where I'd be right now if she wouldn't have let me do all that kind of stuff.
That's one thing to recognize, and I tell people a lot of times is like, there's privilege, right? Privilege exists. I am a white male in Wisconsin. I have all the privilege in the world. I came from a middle income family, but privilege isn't exclusively that. Like, clearly I'm well aware that I had a lot of privilege. So I'm not trying to discount that, right? Me opening my store even. I opened my store downtown, and people will say, oh, wasn't it scary? It was scary. But, dude, honestly, I knew my dad had a house in town that me and my family, if I had to, could move in with him and not pay bills. I had that safety net that most people don't have. So I had a lot of advantages. But that's one thing to recognize talking about your foster mom. Your mom is like, not everybody has parents like that. Yeah. And it's so integral to your success when you have people like that around you. It's really makes it really, really difficult to be successful and pursue things if you don't have anybody backing and like putting you in a good, advantageous position. So it's important to recognize when those opportunities are there. Yeah.
And one of the biggest things too that I would also just like to touch on too, you might know about me, is like my adopted father, obviously, that I've ever met. Like, he's taught me everything I know about just like running a business as it is. Like, for me, it's the creative side's always come natural to me. My mother's a professional artist, so like that raised around that all the time. I was just always encouraged to be creative and just think about what I could do with something. But like when it came down to like managing money, running a business, and making this something that I could make a living off of, that all comes back to my father. So shout out my father.
All right, so what are a couple dream businesses or people that you would love to get a chance to work with?
Ooh, Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow, rapper. Some of you that might go over your head. If you don't know who Jack Harlow is, look him up. I'm talking Missionary Jack, okay? Look up Jack Harlow on Google. That is like, the way he talks just like me. We think in the same way. He is a music artist, a rapper out of Kentucky. Man, is he an interesting fucking dude. And I just want to sit down with him I would pay money to sit for an hour and just talk about life and business with that man. If I had to shoot high, I'd say Drake, but like, Lord knows. Bryson Tiller would be a huge one for me. That's my all-time favorite music artist. I just think like the way he's gone about business and like entrepreneurship and just his brand has been phenomenal. But outside of the music world, I really have always kind of thought about like sitting down with it, being like the director of digital for like a team, like a professional team, like Milwaukee Bucks, something like that, right? Where I'm the guy like who decides all the digital media stuff. It's always been something for me where I've been like, That'd be good. Like I could sit back with that and really not really worry about the money too much and still just enjoy living that life, right? Where I get to just direct and really have a voice and a platform beyond just my own content. Besides that, that might be it that comes to my mind right now off the top of my head. I've always been a G-Eazy fan. I like how he runs his brand and his business. I gotta get one for any of you camera kids out there. Theo Scudra. He's the photographer and videographer, director of cinematography for all of Drake's Instagram posts and media everywhere. He shoots, the weirdest thing you're going to learn is you go Google him, he shoots all on film. He shoots video for Instagram on an actual RE film camera. He has to go get it. It costs probably thousands and thousands of dollars a year that he just gets this film from instantly back. He shoots all of their Instagram content, media content, social content on literal camera film. It's amazing. Go look it up.
For me, I've been trying to get several people on. Not really sure how to get a hold of them. So if you know somebody that knows them, hit me up. I don't understand why I can't. One is this rapper out of Vancouver named Sunreal. Dude used to skate, like still skates a little bit as far as I'm aware. Dog, come on. I want to get you on the show. I'll fly to you. Promise you.
I ain't got no Canada connections.
Okay, so this is the other one that I can't believe I don't have a connection to this man, is Prof. Where are you at, dude? He's a rapper from Minneapolis, right? He's part of Rhymesayers.
Yep.
One of his music videos was filmed at Familia, and I'm down with Steve Nesser and Tabari and stuff. Like, I know all those dudes, and that dude used to skate.
Really?
What's up, dog? Like, you played a show in Eau Claire?
Let's try and figure that out. I'll make some calls to my Minneapolis guys to see what we can get. I got some music guys out there too, some managers and some guys who are blowing up. So
I finally talked to somebody who at least gave me the in as like, okay, this is the dude who like runs his label because he has his own label, right? So I haven't hit them up yet because I've been busy, but like that's a dude that I genuinely foresee, like, there's no reason I couldn't have you on the show sometime in the next year or something. Obviously, your following's way bigger than mine, but my platform is large enough now. It has, like, a very legit thing. There's a good following. Come on, dog. Skater to skater. I want to have you on the show. That would be tight.
Lock in.
All right, so what's next for you? What can people expect, like, following you? What can people expect to see in the next, immediate 3, 6 months, year?
An entirely new rebrand, first and foremost. I had a lot of old unnecessary stuff still on my gram and still on my website and things like that. The look is so much more polished now, and the business is so much more prevalent right now that it's like, there's no need to be doing any more of that extra whatever. It's like it was very much the journey before. Like, here's kind of my progression. Look where we're at now. But I've been banging out some consistently high performance pieces now that it's like, that's just the new that's the new normal, and it's only up from here. And so rebranding's the first thing. Second thing is really expanding on my brand of things, pulling in more content creators to kind of really help put on and co-sign. So much talent that I've been around now. So much talent. Shout out Trey Moore. Shout out Aaron McElroy. Even Jangler, who I was talking about earlier, Tyler Bruns, Jalen Pascal. Like, shout out everybody who's really kind of starting to be out here and create on the same kind of a wave. I'm here to put everybody else on and kind of give them a platform too. So now that that's out there, like, know that that's coming next is for me to really kind of help other people get to where I'm at and show them kind of the way to kind of keep coming, because that's the biggest thing I've been excited about so far is like, that's why my Instagram says the kid from Eau Claire is like, I'm here to kind of put everybody else on. I want to give Eau Claire that kind of a platform. If somebody's got to be the voice for it, I will be.
I think it's really important for people to recognize that, dude, you're not hurting yourself by putting other people up and showcasing them if they're good, right?
Not at all. Uplifts people.
Right. You're not taking anything away from yourself. You're not competing against those people. I mean, you are within yourself, right, about wanting to put out good stuff, but it's all good for everybody. Like, if you feature somebody who, even if they have a fifth of like the following and reach that you have, but they're good and they're talented, it's only going to benefit you, and it's only going to benefit them. It's great for everybody.
Shout out Aiden Downing. You can go check out his Instagram too. I've been helping that kid kind of. That's my biggest co-star right now. Like, if I had to say like who's the next kid up doing what I'm doing out of Eau Claire, it's Aiden Downing, Ayden. Shout out, like, he's like 14, 15 years old and has like 3/4 of my media following already. Like, this kid's the next one up. And that's the biggest thing is, like, I've never been afraid to co-sign that. Like, I'm not here to, like, if that kid surpasses me, God bless. Like, because that kid deserves all this beyond more than what I did. Like, he's been putting in the work. Imagine if I would have started at 14 and was this passionate and this damn hungry about it. Like, shout out to that kid.
Well, and those dudes are only going to have your back. You know, it's not like you need
we're family
them.
about it. We're family about it.
You're not helping them out with the intention of like, hey, you're going to help me out down the road. But if you genuinely like what they're doing and you're promoting them, you're just putting yourself in good company.
Absolutely. And these are kids, again, when I was talking about branding, expanding the Darton brand, is I eventually, like, if you would look at what I want to do with that brand, would be have more than just me under that. I've never thought that my vision would go the whole way. I'm confident, but like not that confident. Like, I want to have other people around me creating under the same brand. I want Darton to have more people under it, not just me, not just my vision. Sure, it carries my name, but that means more to me now. It's not just my existence, rather just kind of this stamp on certain things. So that's always been my intention. Is like I want to push these kids, challenge them, so that when I start to run the business aspect, can't always be the creative one all the time. I got some of the people behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love it with everything I'm doing too. In the same way of like, I would love to bring more people in. Anytime somebody reaches out to me and is like, "Hey, man, I'd love to like be a intern and learn how to do this, you know, X, Y, Z."
Absolutely.
Right? I'm like, yeah, dude, sick.
Come on,
sounds
in.
perfect. I'll teach you whatever I can about this because I have a lot more I want to do. You know, outside the shop. It's not that I'm done with the store. It's not at all. I would love for that to be there forever. But I do have a lot of other things that I want to do, and I would love to find more people that want to be involved with my store and, you know, take a little bit of ownership of what's going on over there. It'd be cool to be able to grow that a little bit. Yeah. You know, we'll see where we get, but it would be awesome to have that.
Build a second shop.
Yeah, I've had people reach out about that before, so we'll see.
Franchise.
Yeah, maybe one of these days. It's funny you brought that up because literally one of my good friends from way back in the day hit me up about that like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, man, if you want to have a real conversation, you got to drive out here and
you got to sit down and lay out the business model. You obviously haven't built anything before if you think you can just build it that fast.
Yeah, for real. Okay, so I asked this about on like every show, right? So one thing I always ask is I want you to share an experience with me, with all of us that you've had that you're super grateful for that happened to you, right? But it only happened because you chose to pursue the thing you're so passionate about. In this case, your videography.
Well, I got a few and I got a few that like went bad, but like I'm so happy about them going bad. The first of which, like I was talking about earlier, with me getting declined for the Adidas job the first time. Best shit that ever happened to me, because like I was way too cocky going into that. Like that checked me so hard, and I just shut my mouth and like grinded for a straight year. And like I don't think I've ever had as a productive of a year as that one, as far as like the change in my ability as a director. Like, so there's the first one for you. So like apply for a job you can't get, kids, and like really, really hope for it, and then just let your heart break and then go work. So there you go. The next one I'd say, I would just say traveling, honestly. Like that's like just being able to get out on my own without my parents and really just experience life for its good or its bad was like so eye-opening to me that like it just did so much like my character. It humbled me. It made me so much more curious about the world and about things, and so much more culturally aware. Like, yeah.
I feel like when you travel, it just opens your eyes to like what opportunities are available well. That like, you know, when you're stuck in one little town, you look at the people that are, you know, quote unquote successful in that town, right? And you're like, okay, they're king shit. Yeah. And then you realize when you travel, like, wait a second, there's a whole lot more available to us. Like,
well, and I think the other thing is it depends on what you're used. What goes? I didn't realize how much like what goes on successfully in your town plays into what you envision as success. There's nobody in Eau Claire doing videography at the caliber and the style that I'm doing, and so I didn't have anybody to look up to think that could be a really successful business model. You know what I mean? And then I stepped out and met people all over the country doing the same thing that I'm doing. Not only was it encouraging, because I was like, okay, like if we fail, we're gonna fail together, and we're gonna enjoy the ride. But like, then I was like, damn, like, okay, so we got people out here I gotta also fight against to eat, right? So I finally got to see, hey, this might actually work. And that was the most encouraging thing about all of it, was like, me as always being a competitive person, that drove me so far. But if you're not a competitive person, just getting out and seeing that people are successful doing what you think you want to do enables you to think that there is a road, right? Like not having a road has been the most challenging part for me mentally. But now that I've gotten to see it, whatever else, I can choose how far on or off of it that I want to go. And the best part is sometimes has even been jumping off of it.
Yeah, that's when you all of a sudden discover totally new options.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'll share one with everyone, and this one's just because of you. And
okay.
Like, I have various things like with kids. You're not a kid anymore, but I have various things happen with kids, and I can see them grow.
19 years old, probably still a kid. Probably still a kid. I mean, I think in my head, I'm definitely a kid. I don't feel like an adult yet.
A comparison to my, freshly 30-year-old self, you're still pretty young. But anyway, so I get to watch kids grow, which is one of the really cool things about my shop. When I opened it, which was April 11th, 2014, so many people came through that first week, right? Including yourself.
24, that was 6 years ago. Holy
it was a while ago, right?
Damn.
And a lot of those people that were coming day one have kept in contact and in general have been coming through the shop since then. Middle school kids that now are going to college.
Every time I come back to Eau Claire, I pop in with you, even though I'm in school right now.
That's what I'm saying. I get to watch all these kids grow, which is really, really cool. And that was part of the reason I wanted to open the shop, is I wanted to be able to be that like kind of role model, big brother-ish
the culture
person.
hub. That's what I was saying before. It's the culture spot. You get to see everybody kind of come through it, learn it, love it, and grow with it.
Yeah, and I get to be like so a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I love when I see like, these kids that I knew since they were young all of a sudden get into this college that they wanted. And I'm like, dude, I'm so proud of you. It's cool to watch that, right? Well, I had kind of forgotten about the interaction, right? And you posted on your story. You posted a thing. This was maybe a year ago, 6 months ago?
You're talking about the sweatshirt, ain't you?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So basically, out of nowhere, you tagged me on something on Instagram, and I was like, oh yeah, Darton, I hadn't thought of your name in a while. What's up? So you posted, it was like...
I had disappeared before I posted that, pretty much, from Eau
you?
Claire.
Yeah,
I've been MIA from Eau Claire from that point for almost a calendar year.
I was going to say, I hadn't heard your name even around for a bit, right? I
had to step away.
Yeah, kind of like...
I had to show face elsewhere.
It was out of sight, out of mind. I really wasn't following everything you were doing up until that point. It just kind of was out of sight, out of mind. All of a sudden, you tag me, and I'm like, okay, what's this? And it's like... four pages or something on the story or on your story, and it's this whole story about how, and I remembered it like vividly once you talked about it. You had said like, hey, you were a kid who didn't really have a whole lot going for you yet at that point, and you had come into my store.
Nothing going for me at that point.
And you had come into my store, right? And you were like, hey, I want to buy a sweatshirt from you so that way I can wear it in some of like the different videos and stuff I'm doing, because I'm trying to do some of the cinematography stuff. Like, are you cool with like having your stuff featured in it or whatever? And I was like, dude, awesome. That sounds fucking sick. Like, I'm stoked that like you're driven to want to do this type of stuff.
Sir.
Yeah, this is awesome. Absolutely. And we had a really great conversation. And when you were going to leave, instead of having you pay for it, I was just like, no, dude, you should have this.
Hey,
like,
you just gave me for free.
Yeah, I was like, this is awesome. Which realistically, like, it didn't cost me that much money. It's not like it was a big money thing. It was just like, I saw you excited about what you were doing, and I was like, hell yeah. I'm stoked that you thought of me when you're excited about doing this. Go for it, dude. Sick. But then, like, you posted that whole thing, and you like told the story about how not a lot of people really believed that was something professional. Like, believed in you at that point in time.
To add the blank into those listening to us who don't understand what we're talking about is, I came into Passion and asked him if I could buy a sweatshirt. He gave me for free, and so I used that like in like a bunch of the videos over time and on set appearances all across the country and whatever else, and always just knew that like he was one of the first people that really like when I asked for help like that or like asked to really kind of like have a community or stuff that I could call home, right? That he was one to say, hey, like, sure, go from there. And so the post was on my Instagram story. I just told in text the story of, hey, I popped into Passion in Eau Claire, wanted to buy this sweatshirt he gave me for free. And like that was something that's just been in like 30 states now. Like that thing has been with me in my travel bag forever. It's finally too small for me now, like to wear appropriately, like out of the house. So like, we're getting there, but it was like I don't forget about little shit like that. Like that's the shit that like I'm absolutely in love with, and like that's the best part about even for me like mentoring younger guys. It's like if I can be that little bit of thing where it's like they know somebody else is here to just say, hey, like yeah, go do it. Like that was the best about it.
Yeah, it can make a big difference with people that
huge.
Like, to you, it didn't take a whole lot necessarily, but it can really like mean something with them.
It's the small stuff.
Yeah, and so to see that. Especially once you had already then had a pretty
like
big
4
following.
years since then.
Yeah.
Like 4 years later, like, I said that I brought that story full circle.
Yeah, and I'm like, damn, dude, sick. Like, I'm so stoked that I got to like be a little bit a part of this. And now all of a sudden,
here the hell we are.
Yeah,
look at us.
Yeah, years later.
Look at us.
We're doing big things, man. So it's exciting. I'm glad that I've been able to be like somewhat a part of various things. And I'm excited with that with the show now is to see, because I've had a lot of like budding entrepreneurs and budding artists, right? I've had some established people.
And I can't wait to finish the whole season episodes.
Yeah, dude. There's some cool names coming up in this season. I mean, it isn't every season. I try to mix it up with like really new people and more established people, but there's some big things. So I've said it before. I think personal growth is like a very, very huge part of life, right? You have to focus on that. If you're not constantly growing, I think you're kind of wasting the little time that we actually have on this earth. Can you tell me about a lesson that you learned that you think has been particularly valuable to you?
Ooh. Music's always been a thing I think has taught me the most about anything in life, which is so weird. For another interesting fact, I've played guitar for like 14 years, piano for like 10 years. Like, I'm hugely musical, and my mother is too. And she embedded me in that from day one. So music's always been kind of what taught me lessons, taught me life. So weird to use this guy as like the one who taught me this lesson, because it's just not what you'd expect. Young Dolph, okay, Memphis rapper, trap, like hard rapper, okay. A bar in his freestyle in Tim Westwood's 2019 UK freestyle session was believe nothing that you heard and half of what you saw, okay? Believe nothing that you heard and half of what you saw was probably the greatest lesson I ever learned in 2019, because people were really obsessed with, or at least those around me were really obsessed with trying to like name and like really box in what I was. I had a lot of friends who were really falling out with me as friends because they didn't really understand like why I was gone all the time. Like, it's not, if I wasn't here showing face in Eau Claire all the time, they kind of lost interest, right? And then and then the biggest thing was everybody would try to explain like what I was doing and why I had to be doing what I was doing. And the biggest thing that I learned was really to just say, hey, believe nothing that like you've heard about it. And if you've been along with me and understood it, like take in about half what you saw, sort out in your head what you think really is of me and of my character, and take half of that with you and then invest that, right? Learn from that, understand that, and we can build some kind of relationship or build some kind of whatever you want out of that. But that was the best lesson I've probably ever learned. And it's crazy to think that was from young Dolph, okay? Memphis. Memphis, youngin.
Dirty South.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one thing that has served me well, and I've had some people like criticize me a little bit about it, is I'm very quick to open up to people. Not necessarily like give them access to anything to be used. It's not like that. But emotionally, I'm very quick to open up, and I like to go into every relationship, friends or whatever, assuming that I'm going to have a relationship with you the rest of my life. I hope that's the case when I meet
wish
somebody.
I was that trusting.
I'm
the opposite.
See, that's how I go into it. I can't. I hope I'm scared of people. What's going to happen. Not saying that it's going to, but that's why I like to assume, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
So that way I just am open to people. Well, so many people are afraid to open up that they have these walls up, and you see these defensive things with them. And a lot of times you never get past that to see the genuine person that they are.
Yep.
But when I befriend somebody and I'm just like, yeah, dude, I'm here for you, whatever you need, and sometimes in the first week, all of a sudden that I'm friends with somebody, I'm sitting down and they're talking to me about how, their dad just died and we have a 3-hour conversation or whatever. Yeah. But dude, it's kind of crazy how many incredible friends that I've made through that time frame. I've had to like harden up myself a little bit of understanding that people are going to let me down. I'll make relationships with people and they're not going to invest as much as I do. But it doesn't bother me at all anymore. I just know that like, hey, if I open myself up to people and try not to be judgmental, dude, there's so many cool people out there that can provide so much to your life. Yeah. And most people, you're just never going to experience them, which sucks.
And I think one of the bigger and better lessons I've learned in that kind of a dimension or realm, if you will, is that this comes directly from my mentor, Jordan Hagedorn, who's another Eau Claire name, actually, who you guys should look up if you're an Eau Claire kid. Jordan Hagedorn, he's an NFL agent here in Eau Claire. Shouts out Jordan. It's just service. As simple as like that is. It's just, as me, somebody who's really hard time just like trusting people and feeling like they have a reason to like try and approach me or things like that, right? Like I'm somebody who like if you don't really have something you're looking like, I'm very much a like one step at a time person. So like come to me and then tell me like why you're here immediately. Be very, very blunt with me. Be upfront. I value that so much. And he's been such a blessing to teach me like to be more like how you're talking about. I got to just be more open to just serving people first and not worry so much about what I'm getting out of it or things like that. And that's been like the greatest thing in building just my character has been really being, okay, Selective with who I work with, given, yes. But then with that, hey, serve them, right? Just be open to look at their needs, what they need from there, and then the money will come. Everything else will come. Whatever intention you had getting out of it, it'll come.
Oh, dude, good things happen to good people. Good things happen to prepared people. It will
be
happen.
Prepared.
No, for
Kids.
real, dude. It will happen. I tell people that over and over and over again. I'm just like, dude, if you're doing it well, it's gonna work. You don't have to worry about trying to finesse something. It'll just end up happening.
This faucet water is phenomenal. I don't know what you got going on over there, but this some phenomenal water.
All right. Do you have any last parting words for our friends?
Well, I just want to say right now, because just for me personally, when I'm going to look back at this in an amount of time, I'm super reminiscent. Me as a person, I love to look back at like my old and former selves. So, speaking to a future self of mine right now, from the past, we are sitting in one of the harshest political climates to ever face America during a global pandemic. I was going to say national, but this is a global pandemic. We're sitting in what we're calling quarantine right now. So just take a moment, wherever you are right now, and just be blessed to be alive and well, because we weren't so damn sure at this point in time. So just remind yourself, hey, like that's done. So if you have had any excuses not to go and try that thing now that you're above and beyond this whole COVID-19 period, you shouldn't have any. So to my future self, stay true to self. Let's go.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.